Greenhouses have glass ceilings which serve to both admit a high amount of light and trap heat inside the structure. According to Kevin Beck from Sciencing, this is how a greenhouse works. With that in mind, we have been hearing the phrase go around about greenhouse gases being trapped in our atmosphere, causing the Earth to heat up, similar to how a greenhouse works. If you haven't been living under a rock, and I'm sure you've heard of climate change and how it seems to be getting worse and worse every year. I would like to inform you in the next couple of minutes about the dangers of climate change and how we can try our best to combat it. NASA explains that there have already been observable effects from climate change. Scientists are confident that the temperature will continue to rise due to greenhouse gases being created by human activity, harming environments over time. Now, let me explain the importance of why we should try to tackle climate change seriously. I will explain what climate change is and why it is something we should worry about as each year passes. I will then explain why this is happening and the effects of climate change throughout the world. Lastly, I will explain how to combat this phenomenon in order to make the world a better place for future generations of humans and animals. So, why is climate change significant and what can happen in the upcoming years if we don't do something? It is causing severe weather patterns. According to Climate Reality Project, to put it bluntly, the future of the planet is on the line. As the Earth heats up, the weather around the world is drastically changing, causing more intense rainstorms, severe droughts, powerful tropical cyclones, and extreme heat waves. These natural events are becoming stronger and deadlier, causing homes and environments damage or even destroying them altogether, causing homelessness and making species drive out of their natural environments. Unless we act, it will get worse. The ocean has increased in the heat since the mid 20th century. This is due to the fact that the ocean stores 90% of our extra energy. With humanity's carbon footprint, it causes damage to the ecosystems, especially the coral reef. Now that we know why it's significant to pay attention and try to help combat climate change, I will explain the effects of climate change. The important question is to ask, what are the effects of climate change long term and short term? Before I start explaining the effects of climate change, I will discuss what the causes are. Since the Earth has a greenhouse effect when it comes to absorbing the sun's rays, there are many gases in the atmosphere to contribute to the effect, such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. Carbon dioxide is a big contributor to climate change, specifically due to humans. Since the Industrial Revolution, carbon dioxide concentration has increased by 47%. Human activities have contributed to a lot to climate change through the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation, increasing the concentration of carbon dioxide from that result. Like I've discussed before, the weather is becoming bipolar and deadlier each year as the Earth heats up over time. Average U.S. precipitation has increased since 1900, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I will say IPCC for reference of this climate change panel. More droughts and longer heat waves will occur and become more intense as time goes on without combating climate change. Hurricanes that are happening are deadlier and appearing frequently in the North Atlantic Ocean, which is near Florida if you do not know. In California, you can feel it getting hotter and hotter each year, especially in the LA County. The IPCC is confident that the temperature will increase for the next couple decades. With the rise in temperature caused mainly by human activity, which from us producing carbon emissions, glaciers around the world have been rapidly melting according to the World Wildlife Organization. According to NASA, the Arctic Ocean is expected to become essentially ice-free in the summer before this mid-century. With ice caps and glaciers melting at a rapid rate, this adds another problem of the sea level rising 1 to 8 feet by 2800. With the sea level rising, storm surges and high tides can cause flooding in many regions. For an example, if the sea level rises 8 feet, a good amount of New York will be underwater by 2100. With all these worrying consequences, we now know how to try and slow down climate change and even halt it to allow the Earth to become habitable. With everything said previously, it seems like there isn't a way to stop the Earth's temperature from rising, but there are many ways to mitigate climate change. Stopping climate change is the act of reducing the production of greenhouse gas emissions. Ways to, ways to mitigate is to create renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and hydro energy sources. For the renewable wind energy sources such as windmills, we have already implemented many around the world. For the solar renewable energy, we have solar panels. Many cities, neighbors, and schools use these in order to um, combat climate change, which is a new reason for it, and to save the electricity bill of the property. For hydro sources, many think of dams like the Hoover Dam, but in Germany they created an underwater windmill that will gather energy from the currents of the oceans. This is an example. My printer stopped working, and so I'm going to use my phone. I'll try my best to show you. It's a little underwater windmill. According to technical director Peter Frankel, these will most likely not harm any sea life as it is equivalent of a human walking into a brick wall. According to Global Environment Facility, electrically powered transport reduces final energy use by more than a factor of 3 as compared to gasoline powered vehicles. With this in mind, we have companies like Tesla creating better electric vehicles over time. Many people are using them more. You really didn't see Teslas until like a couple years ago, but now they're everywhere in California at least. Even though it still creates emissions, it's still a lot less than a normal vehicle running on gas. We can also have public transport run on electricity. For example, a train in Japan runs on magnetic levitation, which means that there's no gas to be running when moving. Reducing your there are many ways to reduce your carbon footprint in surprising ways. One of the most surprising ways to reduce your carbon footprint is by cutting your protein intake by 50%, surprisingly. This allows you to reduce your carbon footprint by 40%. Another way, it's not really surprising, but it's kind of common sense, but having less children in the future is a way to cut your carbon footprint as well. Uh, with climate change now on your mind, I hope I was able to inform you on the possible dangers in the future for us and our grandchildren. We know the effects of climate change, why it is happening, so now we know how to mitigate it. The reality of climate change is a real threat to our future lives and the lives of our children and grandchildren. I never really thought of global warming was a big deal until people started talking about it recently in the years. But researching around the internet made me realize how important it is to try and mitigate it for the future of society. My name is Raymond Lopez, and this was my speech. Thank you.